All right, hello everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to be waiting just about 2 minutes and getting started. So we'll talk to you real soon. All right, just an update for those who just joined. We're going to be starting in just about 1 minute. All right, hello everyone, and thanks for joining us for today's webinar and demonstration on Jenkins X, securing apps deployed via Jenkins X using Ambassador. A few quick things up top before we jump in. One, we are recording, so for any reason you need to drop or maybe you had a colleague who's unable to join, you will be able to watch this later on. Two, we are taking questions, so please, as soon as you think of one, go right ahead and put it into the question panel. Even if you think maybe we'll answer it during the course of the session, it's always good to know what it is that you want to hear about. So Oscar, can you go to the next slide, please?
Yes.
Not to take up too much more time, but just introduce our speakers. We have from CloudBees today, Oscar Medina. He's a developer advocate on the Jenkins X team. And from DataWire, we have Matt Turner. Oh, sorry, Oscar. From DataWire, we have Matt Turner, who's a sales engineer. All right. So I'd like to just pass this right over to get started, right over to Oscar, and Oscar, kick us off.
Yep. Thanks everyone for joining. I'm excited to walk you through how to secure an application that has been put through CI/CD in Kubernetes, literally, but via Jenkins X, which sits on top of Kubernetes. So today's agenda, you'll learn how to protect this fictitious company's application that is running on Jenkins X and enable single sign-on. You're probably familiar with that term already. We're using OAuth 2 authentication, and the goal of this demonstration is to show you how you may leverage your Azure Active Directory in this case to allow employees to use existing credentials. That's like a common practice, right? So under that, here is sort of a little bit of a write-up of what we're trying to do, right? This fictitious company, Ski Pros, is using Jenkins X to deploy features to their app. It's an intranet, so they're looking to protect the application and not have it accessible publicly. So to that end, we're going to use Azure AD credentials to allow folks to log in, right? So let's go to the next slide. The solution looks something like this. So, sort of rough sketch of the single sign-on process. From the left, you have this person going into the site, and the site then hits Ambassador Gateway, the API gateway. It does a few things and sends data to Azure, the typical OAuth 2 workflow, right? And so Azure responds with an authorization response. And if all goes well, then on step 4, you can see the ski app content then is returned to the user via the browser, right? So that's a little bit of what we're going to do today. So before I demonstrate these different configurations, I'd like to have Matt give you a quick overview of what Ambassador Edge Stack is, right? I actually am new to it too. I'm excited to use it, and hence our webinar today, but I'll let Matt talk about it a little bit.
Perfect. Thanks, Oscar. Yes, so the Ambassador Edge Stack is a Kubernetes native ingress and API gateway. And it really started with our Ambassador open source project, which are the items you see on the left in blue. And there are some basic capabilities here that are in the open source project you'd see the different protocols, but what you would expect from a traffic management level, load balancing, routing, being able to hook into your service mesh, multi-cluster support, those type of items. All of that's included in the Ambassador open source project. And the Ambassador Edge Stack basically adds on to our open source project by providing additional modules that are really required in today's environment. And as Oscar's going to talk about today, authentication, securing access to your services is one of those, and we can handle different scenarios around that, as well as the other capabilities that you're seeing here around rate limiting and custom requests. Beyond that, we're also very focused on delivery acceleration, providing different tools, service preview and integration with CI/CD to help accelerate your dev process, as well as providing visibility and publication of your Swagger APIs. So it also includes a development portal. All of those items combined make up the Ambassador Edge Stack.
Very nice.
And then so from here, sorry, Oscar,
yeah,
I just stepped on you.
Yeah, I was just, I was going to say, we wanted to just quickly go over this OAuth typical workflow, right? Since we're going to use it.
Yeah, 100%. And most of you on the call, I'm sure, are familiar with the auth code flow here. I did want to put up a quick graph that Oscar's presenting now. This will be directly related to the demonstration that he's going to work with you here. Everywhere from initial access application to redirect back to your IDP, all the way to access to the appropriate service. And Oscar will be able to get into the details on how that's configured and the options you have there for providing secure access to your services.
Awesome. Well, let's get to it. I think everyone wants to see the demo, so 100%. I'll start by showing some of the configuration and go from there. Actually, maybe the best thing is just to walk you through logging into the actual site so you can see it in action, and then we'll talk about the configuration. So in this case, I'm going to the fully qualified domain of the application, as you can see here. So I'm just going to hit enter. And there it is. What just happened is that Ambassador did its work, and now it's telling me, hey, you need to log in. Now, I have an Office 365 account. This is my own account, and I configured that with Ambassador, and I'll show you details later. But to go ahead and log in, I'll type in my credentials. And there it is. So it logged me in successfully because I was authorized by typing my credentials, right? So that is the end result. Now, let's talk about how that happens, right? So in Jenkins X, the first thing that you should know is that every application is actually packaged in a Helm chart. That's the de facto, that's the gold standard. And so in order for us, and by default, by the way, Jenkins X will expose this application or service. As shown here on my screen, you can see that the YAML used to expose the application by default is used by a custom component we call expose controller that the core team in Jenkins X wrote. Now, my job to change that configuration and make it Ambassador friendly is to show how we can add the annotations. Now, I'm not sure if you can see this, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit to give you a little more visibility into this. This is what the modified configuration for the service looks like. It's just annotations. You've probably done Nginx annotations. In this case, it's a little bit more than that, right? By specifying these things, and I'm able to publish the application, and Ambassador is aware of this change, right? Now, this is just one place where this configuration takes place. There's another portion I need to show you, and that's via the ambassador portal. So what I'll do is I'll actually minimize this and go to my ambassador portal. So this is the dashboard, right? When you go into Ambassador, you can actually log in and then start creating some configurations. The specific configurations that I had to do in order to get this to work is, the first thing, I created a host entry for this application, so you can see it, down here. I am in charge of my domain, so you can see that the subdomain that I added here, I redirected it to the IP gateway IP address, and then did the DNS entry, right? That's all. So the host entry is one. Then the other thing I did is I went into filters, and in the filters, I had to configure the actual OAuth configuration. Now, I'll show you in the YAML here, but this is what it looks like, right? So if we wanted to see it in YAML, I'll just zoom in here, and there's the OAuth stuff, the client, the secret, and the protected origin, right? So that's what it looks like in YAML. Once I do that, then I have what's called filter policies. In addition to a filter, I have to have a policy that tells Ambassador what to do, right? And so that's this policy right here. Let's see. Yep, I have it right here. So here it is. It's pretty straightforward, right? I'm telling Ambassador that for this host, everything that comes through it needs to be protected. And then all requests, basically tell it what to do. Do I want to continue or break the workflow, the OAuth workflow, and tell the user it's failed? That's right, pretty straightforward. With these things in place, then I was able to quickly go to the fully qualified name like we did, and then the OAuth kicks in, right? Pretty straightforward. That's one thing I love about Ambassador. It's like there's not a lot of configuration that goes on, and sooner than you know it, you have the application running, right? So that is in a nutshell what the config is. You can actually use other providers. So I showed you Azure today, but you might use Okta. Ambassador supports Okta and other providers. Matt, does Ambassador support the Auth1? I think it's one of, or sorry, Auth0. Yeah,
Get
so
off
they
my mute
do.
here. Yeah, absolutely we do. And we'll also cover JWT token access validation as well as supporting a whole host of single sign-on. Oscar had mentioned Okta. I've got my list over here: KeyCloak, Azure, Google, One Login, pretty much whatever you need there.
Yep.
Right.
Very cool. Yeah, so this is actually, in a nutshell, the demo. I think if people have questions, we wanted to make it casual. If you want to ask a few questions, please do so. I do plan to give you a link as a follow-up to the repository. It's open source, so you can actually take your time and view the configuration of the Helm chart and use it for yourself. I do plan to also publish a detailed blog post to walk you through the steps of configuring this. So that should be a follow-up very soon.
Yep. And there was a question, I think, around hosts. You had mentioned that a couple of times, Oscar. For folks who aren't familiar with it, the host configuration basically allows you to create a public entry point via FQDN, as Oscar had mentioned. It also allows you to handle TLS termination and origination if that is going to be handled at the gateway as opposed to at your load balancer. We can configure for either way. And it also allows you, and Oscar showed some flexibility in his YAML config where he had
Right.
annotations in place for the mapping. It
Right.
allows us to associate with a particular host. So if you want to split that traffic either across multiple hosts, or you may
Right.
have a config where it's internal and external, and that host value will allow you to provide that.
Yeah, I think it's very flexible. That's like I said, I think I found it easy to quickly just configure things and have it work, you know, which is really nice.
Perfect.
Let's see if there aren't, do we have any other questions?
Not currently.
Okay, cool. Well, if you want to learn more about Jenkins X, you know, it's open source. You can go to jenkins-x.io and Ambassador too. Just get ambassador.io. Know that Jenkins X is part of the CD Foundation project, so it's under that umbrella, much like Tecton and Spinnaker and others. So learn more about the CDF as well. There's a link there. And we appreciate you attending today, and we'll make this recording available for you as well, and we'll share it with you via social media. Excellent.
All right, just posted all those links in the chat. Let's just wait 1 sec, see if any questions come in.
All right.
But otherwise, doesn't look like it, so I think we're all set.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining, and we look forward to sharing some additional information soon. Bye for now.
Thanks, everyone.